any form of timescale.
Thanks, Chair.
Assembly Member Russell.
Thank you. Commissioner, Section 502 of the report of the Daniel Morgan Independent Panel includes this statement: unwarranted assurances were given to the family and the Metropolitan Police placed the reputation of the organisation above the need for accountability and transparency. The lack of candour and the repeated failure to take a fresh, thorough and critical look at past failings are all symptoms of institutional corruption which prioritises institutional reputation over public accountability. Now, I acknowledge you've said that that's not the Met that you see today, and you've also said that this new definition of institutional corruption doesn't sit comfortably with previous definitions of corruption. And you've also said that you want to come back with a considered response to the overall panel report. But has it made you consider any of your own priorities as leader of the Metropolitan Police?
It's certainly reinforced a priority, that's for sure. And I mentioned the conversations that I've been having with the senior leadership around professionalism more generally, and standards. And it gives, a potentially a turbocharge to that work. One thing Barbara didn't mention is that we've set up I'm not trying to be critical at all, but it suddenly occurred to me that one thing she didn't mention is we've set up a reference group, and obviously all this work that she will be leading, reporting directly to Steve and me, will be highly informed by subject matter experts and the public, I've no doubt, as we go forward. So it's going to kind of evolve and iterate, and that's one reason why we can't say exactly what the product will be. But it's turbocharged, potentially, that work. And it also, I think, has, as I said, has caused us to sit down and ask, when might it be when we might appear more closed than we intended? When might it be that we, do fail to put some piece of material out when we could have done? And how do we put in place processes to hold ourselves to an even higher standard in relation to that openness? Now, obviously, we are, as I said, very highly scrutinised. The officer on the street is massively scrutinised, probably more than any other professional. And we have an awful lot of different aspects of governance and accountability. We, I think I'm right in saying, produce more answers to freedom of information requests, perhaps, than any other single organisation in the country. And we want to think about how we can, reduce the freedom of information requests, perhaps, and increase the amount of publicly available information. So it's kind of given a turbocharge to those areas. But I do, again, want to come back with a considered response on this.
Thank you. Now, in this committee, we've heard you on several occasions talk about the importance of supporting your officers and of building confidence in the police. Yeah. This was stated by you to be very high on your list of goals for your leadership. Now, the panel report warns somewhat against taking an overly defensive approach and talks about the value of openness and not being overly defensive of the institution as a way of building confidence. So are you confident that in a future situation where you became aware of allegations of corruption within a section of the Met Police, that your leadership and guidance would err on the side of transparency and accountability rather than protecting the reputation of your officers and teams?
Yes.
Thank you, that's quick. Then you also talked, and your answer to my first question was, seriously sort of talking about upping your game. Can you give an assurance to the committee today that you and your senior officers appearing before us will act as if there is a duty of candour in existence, even if this is not yet formalised in statute or terms of reference? And certainly the things you've been saying suggest.
So, as I say, I think we do. And if colleagues may have looked or may not have looked, but a more recent duty that is, explicit within the Code of Ethics, requires us to give appropriate. I think the word being, appropriate is important. Cooperation and then it goes towards, as individuals, being candid very strongly. And we have the Code of Ethics, and then we have the misconduct regulations, and the two of them, put a big onus on individuals to cooperate appropriately. However, I'm sorry to be slightly cracked record. Being a police officer is always about making judgments. It's always about making balanced decisions. You've got a lot of different things you have to consider, and as being a leader also. And when I am deciding, if I even went back to your last question, whether I can tell everybody everything about everything, I have to think, first of all, about right to life, people's right to privacy and their data being protected and personal information being protected. Protected. I have to think about not undermining a court process, due process. I have to protect secrets, that's proper secrets defined properly. So that's secret methodologies, that's the names of informants. I could go on. So sometimes we would love to say a lot more than we can, because if we do, in our desire to be open, which is a very important good, we will transgress the law and do something which we would be rightly heavily criticised for. So it's always a balancing act. And I know members of the committee understand this, but what I think I'm saying is that we will be asking ourselves again, are we being overcautious? Or we think our default position is to be open, but are there cases where it's not like that?
Thank you. Now, I've got one final question, which is that a duty of candour implies not only full but timely information to be provided to scrutiny bodies like this one. We actually have a list of 105 outstanding requests for pieces of information from the Met in our action log. This is the one from the 23rd of June agenda. So there's a few more from today for the papers for today's agenda. But there were 10 from 2021, 56 from 2020, 33 from 2019 and 6 from 2018. All these are questions to which written answers were promised in good faith. So if this information is not forthcoming, sometimes 2 years after the promises are made, how does this sit with that duty of candour and accountability that the Daniel Morgan report regards as lacking in its findings and vital for restoring public confidence?
Well, again, there's a thing here about balance. I have a veritable industry of people providing answers to questions. I think on average we get somewhere between 70 and 100 of the Mayor's questions that come the way of the Met to try to answer in a very timely fashion, or at least not answer but give him the facts and the detail that he might have to work from. This committee does ask some sometimes very probing and big questions, and I'm not saying in any sense that I resent the volume. I do sometimes resent the on behalf of my teams the nature, the duplication, the poor between us all. Perhaps processes could be increased. Freedom of information, I can't remember the figures, but we have tens of thousands of those requests, which we service according to the timescales of as best we possibly can, the Information Commissioner. And I should say that in relation to the various things that we are under a duty to disclose, we have hugely improved, just as we've hugely improved our vetting in the last couple of years, we've hugely improved the timeliness of data access requests, of which there are another many tens of thousands, and our freedom of information requests. I wasn't aware of the figures you just put to me. I will have to look at that. I'm sure some of them will have been completely superseded by probably 1, 2, 3, 4 questions that have subsequently been asked in this committee or has been made available to the committee. But I don't know. I can assure you that we try, that it is hugely expensive and on occasion can feel quite burdensome to the people who are doing it, piece of work, but something we take seriously and we respect, and it is part of our, as I say, I think more than any other police service probably in the world. And I have a lot of international colleagues who come here and say, if I'm honest, they say, oh, Cress, imagine living with that, the amount of time and effort you people, instead of policing the streets, put into this. I say, this is part of the public holding us to account. We do it, we have to do it.